Ray Galton and Alan Simpson were introduced to each other by TB, meeting while being treated for the lung disease that in the era before antibiotics was a plague to generations. But their names remain linked by TV. After meeting the comedian Tony Hancock while writing for radio in the 1950s, they suggested a 30-minute television show for the performer, which became Hancock's Half Hour, its catchphrases still quoted today. The writing duo then created a remarkable on-screen double act in the rag-and-bone sitcom Steptoe and Son. Galton and Simpson have not written together for 30 years, but DVD and repeat channels have made their work some of the longest-lasting half hours in entertainment history. Like Marks and Spencer, Gilbert and Sullivan, Morecambe and Wise, you get bracketed together always with that and between you. Has that ever annoyed either of you?
Has it?
Well, no, not to my knowledge. We started off as Simpson and Galton, and then I don't know, about 60 something, we suddenly became Galton and Simpson, which
I think my mother objected. Yes, yeah, but they sometimes they left the O-N off the my names. Ray Galt and Alan Simpson.
Yeah, Ray Galton and Alan. Yes, right, yeah. And then we've been Ray Ganley. Alan Simple.
Simpleton. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got various. We did a show with Hancock where we always used to get his name wrong. You know, the local paper would be Tony Hancock or Tony Handbag. You know, so always just get his name wrong.
And it's one of those strange things. It's a generalisation that's true that serious drama has tended to be written by one person, and comedy has pretty much always been written by two people, by duos. Why do you think that is?
You need a sounding board, really, where it's funny. But when we all worked together in one building, Spike Milligan and Eric Sykes, Alan and myself, we found that Spike would come in quite often into our room and say, "Oh, listen to this. You must hear this. And, no. What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And Eric would occasionally as well. But we never did that to them because, we would do it to each other.
Well, I was going to say, the joke has two parts, hasn't it? It has the setup and the punchline, and presumably that's why two people writing together.
Well, you do become a bit. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Where you finish each other's sentences. We used to get a lot of that, you know.
Annoying.
Yeah, annoying.
That's it.
Lawrence Marks and Maurice Gran, who wrote Birds of a Feather and many other comedies, they once told me that a writing partnership is like a marriage. You shout at each other all the time and you don't have sex. Do you recognise that description of a writing partnership?
Well, I better not say it's the other way around with us, but...
I tell you, you spend more time writing.
Yeah, exactly. More time with Alan and I in each other's company. I spent more time than we ever did with our wives, probably. Not so nice in one way or other, but yeah, that's the way you really get to know a person. And the idea of finishing sentences and having the same thoughts occurs all the time between us.
The thing about we were slow writers, basically, and that's why used to take so long. That's why we spent so much time in each other's company. Some writers knock it off, Writers who've had journalistic backgrounds write very quickly. It's like in being a journalist, they say, I want 500 words now about something, and they just do it. Well, we could never do that. We have to sit and think all day long, and sometimes we go 3 days without writing a word. We used to take one of us to suggest something, and the other one said nothing. That meant he didn't like it. And then all day would go by without any, and we'd found out 3 days later that we'd forgotten whose turn it was to say something.
This is when you get to hate each other, slightly.
But
well, no, but that's an important point, because it is the question that double acts are always asked, whether they're writers or performers, is whether you have ever ended up hating each other.
No, no.
It's not worth the trouble.
No.
It'd be impossible to work under those conditions. I mean, the way Gilbert and Sullivan are supposed to have worked, that would be impossible, wouldn't it?
Where they didn't speak.
Yeah, they didn't speak, and one of them wrote the words and stuck it under the door, and no, you couldn't. Well, I can't. You'd have half a sentence, and you have to stick it under the door for me to write the other half. No, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
I find Alan's tolerance of my moods and absences from from the writing table. Quite incredible. I would have gone absolutely bananas, ballistic. But I would go out and not return and things like that for hours sometimes. And
Where would you be?
I'm not telling you. I didn't tell my wife, and so I'm not going to tell. I didn't tell Alan either. No. But yeah, and really the silences between us. Having said, we get on well, we do really, but the silences between us was resentment. I thought, well, all right, you've turned that idea down, come up with one yourself then, or something like that. He wouldn't know what the silence was about or anything else, and so the silence would go on for days sometimes.
When you started working together, did you make each other laugh? Were you aware of that?
I can't remember any great peals of laughter,
no,
can you?
we never used to guffaw. Right? I think Ray has a readier laughter than I. I always think, I always found it very difficult anyway, difficult craft to do, and I think it's far too serious to laugh at. Ray was a dreadful audience. I mean, every show we ever did, Hancock and Steptoe, at the dress rehearsal, he'd be, oh, this is terrible. Oh my God, this is the worst thing we've ever done.
I'd start rewriting in the box.
He hated every, and I said the same. It's all right. It's going to be all right. When the audience get in, because he looks at them now. He said, "That's a funny show, and that was a funny." So he didn't think so at the time.
But no, there are some people. Who are laughers, and some aren't. I mean, appreciate humour, appreciate funny things. I know it's funny. I think, yeah, it's great. Yeah. Never heard a peep out of me or Alan.
No, a smile.
So you're more like a comedian, just ticking the jokes.
In general, we used to smile a lot. If you come with a good line, go, yeah, that's good. You smile. But he wouldn't have Spike would laugh. He would hear Spike laugh himself at his own work. And we can't.
But he was a manic depressive though, so maybe that was
right. Yeah. We never used to say, "Oh, that's a great line." Oh, we'd be quietly confident. When we finished a script that we knew wasn't bad, we couldn't wait, wait to get it typed out and the first read through, and we'd sit there, I suppose, a little bit smug, thinking, "Well, wait till they read this. This is going to."
But Blood Donor, you knew that was
Blood Donor, we knew that was going to work, and Hancock was a great, talking about laughter, he was a great audience. He used to, he used to really laugh out loud, if something tickled him. So that was, so if we'd written a script that we knew would appeal to him, we used to look forward to him seeing it,
I've been told by doctors and nurses often that even now they can't go through a day taking blood samples without somebody or more than one person going into the blood donor routine.
Now, this won't hurt. You'll just feel a slight prick on the end of your thumb.
Well, I'll bid you good day then. Thank you very much. If you want any more, don't hesitate to get in touch with me.
Where are you going?
Have me tea and biscuits.
But you came here to give us some of your blood.
Well, you've just had it.
That's just a smear.
It may be just a smear to you, mate, but it's life and death to some poor men.
I've just taken a sample to test.
A sample? How much do you want, then?
Well, a pint, of course.
A pint? Have you gone raving mad? You must be joking.
A pint is a perfectly normal quantity to take.
You don't seriously expect me to believe that? I mean, I came in here in all good faith to help me country. I don't mind giving a reasonable amount, but a pint? That's very nearly an armful.
It was Hancock's bête noire after the performance of it. He came to hate it. But at the same time, when he really got...
Because everyone would say it to him.
Yeah.
Walk down the street, so very nearly an armful, Tone? He used to hate the one.
But also that line, because when people sometimes slightly misquote it, almost an armful or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's the precision, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the points about we used to spend so much time. Probably the line started, that's an armful. And then one of us would have said, that's nearly an armful, it's better. And then the other one said, yeah, but better still, very nearly an armful. Because it gets more and more, as you say, precise.
But it's also mysteriously, it is funnier.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you still get a laugh if you say, a pint, that's an armful. But it's not as good as it's very nearly an armful. And I tell you another thing that's so important is the rhythm of a line. One syllable too many and the laugh's dead. It's gone. You've got too many syllables. Rhythm is perfect. And especially when you were working with someone like Hancock, who had an instinct for the rhythm of the line. It was got great value from being very finicky about the construction. Very important. It's not enough to be funny. It's got to be constructed correctly. The greatest compliment that was ever paid to us when we started doing a show called Comedy Playhouse. We started working with actors. Up until then, we'd been working with comedians or comic characters, and we started working with straight actors. And we went to a rehearsal once, and one of these actors came up and said, he said, it's very, very interesting working by your scripts because we don't have to rewrite anything. And I said, rewrite? How dare they? At their peril, But it suddenly made me realise that some writers do the script and don't even go to rehearsals. And the actors feel free. And the actors felt free to change the construction, change the words, and put it. Well, it never happened to us. We wouldn't allow it. I mean, the most important part is that aspect of the writing is the most important part, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing about, I suppose, the Blood Donor, in many respects, from our point of view, was the perfect construction. We knew how it was going to finish before we started, which is a great help.
And very unusual for us.
Very unusual. We never used to know the end. We used to get to page 21. And there's one more page left to do the ending, and that'd be another 2 days to do the last page. Never knew how to finish. It infuriated me when I first saw Dad's Army, because when they couldn't think of anything to finish, they just used to suddenly have something blow up and then freeze the frame. And I said, that's it, why didn't we think of that?
Freeze frame.
Freeze the frame and bring up the credits. But we used to spend hours trying to think of an ending.
And you're from that generation that you grew up leading up to the war and then during the war.
I was
presumably that had quite an effect, did it?
The war, particularly, I remember, when the war, I was 9 when it broke out, 9 to 10, 1939. I was just 10, just before my 10th birthday. And the very first thing I heard, we were listening to Chamberlain saying that no such undertaking have been given. We are now at war with Nazi Germany. And the air raid siren went. And I was out of the house, round the corner into the recreation ground, sitting in an air raid shelter, shivering with fear, thinking any minute now I'm going to be blown to smithereens. And sat there. Nobody else came in this air raid shelter. And after about half an hour, the all clear went, and I sort of sheepishly went back home. And I said, "Where you been?" I said, "I've been on the air raid shelter." He said, "Well, what do you do that for?" I said, "Because the air raid siren went." So my first memory was, and I was in fear. I was for the next 4.5 years. And when I met Ray, he said, "Oh no," he said, "I loved it." He thought it was a great fun.
You weren't frightened by the war?
No, I hated the Blitz because I had to go down the air raid shelter. Hated all that. But the Battle of Britain was okay because we would stand outside and watch it all happen. And of course the buzz bombs, well, they were all right. They were all right, as long as you remember to makes yourself scared once the engine stopped.
I was going to say, so the engine stopped, and that was when you did.
I know. I was standing in the middle of our street, watching this doodlebug coming over, and I was with a couple of friends. Oh, I wonder where that's going. And then the engine stopped, and it immediately did that, and it was diving straight for us. We didn't know what to do. We rushed in all directions, and then to his house, because that was the nearest. And then everybody in those days used to keep the key on a piece of string through the letterbox. Put your hands in the letterbox, pull the string out, and the key on the end. Get it. And we were trying to do that in order to get through his house to get to the air raid shelter. And there was so much squabbling going on with the key and the piece of string. We just threw ourselves on the floor and hoped for the best. And like all bombs and things like that, explosions, they always seem much nearer than they are. And I think the buzz bomb, when it came down, got caught in the electricity pylon, So I didn't really leave school because when we were coming up to leaving, it was bomb damaged. So I didn't go back, and that was it. Never saw me again. So But
so you never officially left. You just they bombed the school.
Yeah, nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. So yeah.
But you both left at 16.
No, I didn't. 14.
14.
Yeah,
Right.
14.
I always remember going to see the headmaster with my mother, and he said, "Well, now, what does he want to do for?" And my mother said, "He wants to be, he wants to be a writer. He wants to be a journalist." That was it. No, he wants to be a journalist. I wanted to be a sports journalist because I could see the football matches for nothing. That was the idea, really. I could get in and get the best seat. And he said, she said he wants to be a journalist, and he laughed. And he said, "Oh no," he said, "isn't it amazing?" He said, "They all want to be something like that." He said, during the war, he said, they all wanted to be Spitfire pilots. He said, if I were you, he said, I'd get him a good job in the city, you know, where we can. So that's exactly what happened. I got a job in the city of London, in the shipping insurance agents.
I got a job at the Transport House in Smith Square. As in the post department.
Transport and General Workers Union.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful place it was. And I really enjoyed it there and with the people. But I remember coming back one night, as we did, and do the same thing, rush up the stairs of Malden Underground, get on a bus, get on the queue to get on a bus and everything else. And one night I just stopped. A light came down and hit me. I know it's dramatic, but you know, this is the way I remember it. And I just stood still on the steps, and I said, I can't keep doing this. I got, you know, there's something else in life other than this. And it was. I got TB and went into the sanatorium.
Well, that's the point at which you meet. I think it's impossible for people who didn't live through that time to imagine now, but was TB something people actively feared in the way they would now AIDS or avian flu or whatever?
Absolutely. I mean, it was the white man's burden, wasn't it? It was a death sentence.
Yeah, the ring a bell time, you know. Da-da.
Like, I was taken ill. My mother, I was seeing a girl whose father ran quite a large sweet shop in Wallington. And my mother was working for him part-time, and he took her on one side. I'd gone into the sanatorium. He said, I think you should realise that when your son comes out of the sanatorium, there's no way that he's going to carry on with my daughter. Which, you know, I mean, that's what it was. It was like leprosy, or any you know, it was a very, very contagious disease, you know. It was before the drugs came on the scene. So it was, I mean, Ray will probably tell you, but he was given 6 weeks to live. And I thought that the end of I was given the last rites the night I had a hemorrhage.
So the first thing you knew, it was blood.
With me, it was.
Gushing out,
I was going to work on the bus, and I started, coughed up blood. And then I had a full hemorrhage that night in bed. And I thought, well, but in actual fact, it was the best thing that could happen because it cleared all the rubbish out, and I started healing. As it turned out, I found this out, later.
I had every symptom known to mankind except for the one thing, blood. Nothing. No Chopin thing at the piano and blood all over the keyboard. Nothing like that at all. And,
but what? So breathlessness and
sweating, night sweating. I was thin. I was only 9 stone 4, and I was 6'3". Night sweats, tired, terribly tired, no energy, and cough, and all the symptoms except blood. And the local GPs, no, just take some malt and cough mixture. And I say my life was saved by my brother coming home on leave and took one look at me and got me to the hospital to have an X-ray.
And so as you say, this was before antibiotics, drugs, so the only treatment was to go to a sanitarium.
Yes,
The average stay was about 3 years, and that was if you were getting well. 2 years was considered to be a spit in the cough. There can't have been much wrong with him. He's only there for 2 years.
And the treatment was what? It was bed rest.
Bed rest.
Rest.
I was the first thing. I did have the artificial pneumothorax as well, which was the air pressure.
So just explain it. So that was where they would collapse your lung deliberately.
Yes, yeah.
To try to force out the TB.
But I was on bed rest for a year. I never got out of bed for a year. And I remember the first time out, there were about 5 nurses standing around me and holding me up. And the pain that was shooting up my legs from putting weight on them for the first time, that was terrible.
Well, after a fairly short space of time, I was transferred to, I was in a 2-bedded room and I was transferred to a 4-bedded room, of which Ray was already ensconced. And another fellow who became a close friend. So there were 4 of us, and that's where we really met.
What was the first thing you said to each other? Do you remember?
Oh, no.
He probably said, "Are you going to eat that?"
Yeah. The thing that I've seen photographs of these sanatoriums, the thing that amazes me is everyone's smoking. But was that really what happened?
Oh, we had smoking hours. I mean, you know...
No smoking hours, so you could smoke the rest of the day.
Yeah, it was 2 and 4, you had to stop. But all the doctors smoked. Nobody knew that. A lot of people thought it was good for you, because it made you cough and it opened up the lungs. A bit like taking an inhaler.
Well, all the adverts were saying how good they were for you.
How good it was for you.
And it seems amazing talking to you two now in your late 70s about being that close to death 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost. Has it marked you psychologically? Do you feel you escaped?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I can't speak for Ray here, but in my case, I started getting better immediately. After having the hemorrhage, that apparently was the best thing that could have happened to me. From then on, each month went past, and he said, coming along, yeah, better, yes, good. And I also had gotten down to just over 9 stone. After 13 months, I was weighed, and I was 10 stone 4, having put on weight. Within 1 year, I was 15 stone something. I've still got stretch marks all over my body, up the inside of my legs, from... When from the putting on this weight so suddenly, 5 stone in a year, and I never looked back from that point of view. It's funny after that when I went used to get medical examination and the strips off, you could hear the doctor and the nurse going, what's all that on your back? They thought I'd been flagellated. Thought what went on in that sanatorium? What did that Ray Galton do to you? And But it was, still got those marks, from...
Alan was convinced that the only way out, because he was absolutely terrified of surgery, and still is, for anything, that he heard it, eat your way out, and that's exactly what he did. And his poor mother used to bring down food to supplement all the food, and anything that we hated in the room, and say, I don't want this. Alan said, I'll have it, and it had all the plates, everything.
Good, yeah, lovely.
That was it.
And the thing that famously changed your life was that you listened to the radio there.
Yeah, they had the radio room, and it broadcast for an hour a day, all around the sanatorium. Things like competitions, quizzes,
record
requests. A load of records have been bought by the friends of the sanatorium, and the girls in the female block and the boys would send messages to each other. They used to meet once a week at the film show and that, and so they were little courting went on. And here's a message for Jean and it's from Arthur. Looking forward to seeing you, and it's Frank Sinatra. This. So it was the little mini Forces favourites type thing. And Ray and I we came onto the radio committee, 18-year-old, young kids, to represent the young people. And we said one day, it's interesting what we're doing. We were doing a seat in the circle. We were doing commentating on tennis matches between the doctors and the nurses, pretending we were the BBC. And Ray and I said, the one thing we don't do is drama or comedy shows. And the bloke who was the head of the thing, he said, all right, then you do it. And we said, all right, then we will. So we came up with an idea that we would do 6 quarter-of-an-hour comedy shows called Have You Ever Wondered? And the idea was that they said, have you ever wondered what would happen if doctors became patients and patients became doctors? And then we'd write a 15-minute sketch. And we dried up after 4. We wrote 4 and couldn't think of any more. So the series was shortened to 4. We got our first fan letter in the Milford Bulletin.
Which I still have, by the way.
So
that was the sanatorium newsletter.
Sanatorium newsletter. We stayed on the radio committee, and and it gradually became. I think in the end we finished up with about 2 hours broadcasting. Little mini BBC, kept us occupied. It's better than embroidering tablecloths, which is what I'd been doing up to then. He'd been making handbags because he could sell them. He could get money with handbags.
I think we were raided by Customs and Excise.
You've been making jewellery down here and things like that, and selling it for 2 shillings and things. Yeah, I think we owe us money.
Mad, absolute mad.
And the way you wrote those first 4, was that pretty much how it would be later on? Handwritten,
we got the scripts.
And we performed them.
And we performed them ourselves. We'd started there.
Terrible.
Handwritten, and we had a sound effects man, and we had a sound engineer. I think there's a photograph that exists taken in the actual radio room, which was a blanket cupboard. I mean, literally, it was about 6 foot by 2 foot. But it's very good equipment. Anyway, but that's how the writing started.
That's how it began. And when you were doing those 4, did you think this is something we could do?
Not well. I tell you, we must have had
a glimmer.
We must have had the hope of it, because we wrote a letter to Frank Muir and Dennis Norton, who were our heroes. Writing, take it from here. They were the biggest names in the writing world, and the best. They were, wonderful. We wrote this letter, to them saying how much we loved the show, and when we come out of the sanatorium, could we get a job in their office? Could we become their tea boys? We wouldn't be a nuisance, and perhaps we could get some idea of learning. And they wrote back a charming letter, which basically was giving us the elbow, but in the most charming way. I said, thanked us for they would hope that we would do extremely well. And the best advice we can give you is to send anything you've written to Gail Pedrick, the script editor of the BBC, who we know is avid for new writers.
We had to look that word up for a start.
Yeah, who we know is avid for new writers. Yours, Frank Muir and Dennis Norton. And we wrote a script which was based on the last sketch of Take It From Here, which used to be a pastiche or something with a film or a play or something. And we sent it in, and we got a letter from Gail Pedrick, which we still got, that said, please do not read more into this than appears on the surface, but we read your script and we were highly amused by it. Would you ring my secretary and make an appointment to see if we can do something for you? And the letter was sent to my house, and I got on the bus, and I went over to Ray's house in St Helier, and I got to the bus, and I ran down Newhouse Walk, waving this sheet of paper, like Chamberlain arriving back from Munich.
Probably the first time you'd seen him running, was it?
He doubts whether I ran.
Yes, I doubt, yeah.
But the whole
he
point...
He probably speeded up when he got near the place.
And it was written, British Broadcasting Corporation, showed it to all our friends. If nothing had ever happened, we always got this letter to say that we weren't a waste of time.
We were contenders.
We were contenders.
BBC Television presents...
A lot of the people you work with, Tony Hancock's a very good example, but there's also Frankie Howard, Spike Milligan. They encourage this thing that a lot of people want to believe, that comedians are deeply, deeply unhappy underneath, because Hancock gives that impression. I mean, is that inevitable?
I don't know if it's inevitable, but I don't think it was true.
But one of the reasons that people think of Hancock as being depressed is that character, which was complicated, wasn't it? Because the character you created for him, which clearly drew from him, was depressive. I mean, there's the famous episode of the Sunday afternoon, and many others.
Everyone in England was depressed on the Sunday afternoon.
His character was gloomy, and he did it so well, you see. All the years that we worked with Tony, 9 years, we didn't have any problems at all with depression.
Although he was tricky, wasn't he?
He was a very nervous man. He was very nervous. The only thing he could do, he was brilliant at what he did, but he had terrible stage fright. Before he ever went on the radio, no problem, because he was just reading a script. His big problem was learning lines, and when we used to do a television show, for a half hour before he went on, he would be, retching. He would be nerves, until he started, until he got the first laugh, and then he was fine. But as soon as the show was finished, it was a drink, and
The longest
he became more and more to rely on the booze. That was the problem.
The longest walk in the world for Tony was walking out from the wings to the microphone, because that was him. That was him. Then as soon as he got to the microphone, he'd be a character or whatever, and then he was fine.
But also, famously, you can see in some of those later episodes, because the eye lines aren't quite right, he was relying on an autocue, wasn't he?
He was relying, well, only for the last two shows that we ever did with him was The Blood Donor.
And that's where it started.
And it was on The Blood Donor that he first read the script.
That was because of a motor car accident.
He was involved in a car accident during the previous week, and he lost 2 days of rehearsal. He had a slight concussion. And Duncan Wood, who was the director, said, well, we've got three choices. Either we postpone the show or we put up the autocues for him to read. So it was decided that he should have the autocues. And that was it. He never, as far as I know, he never learnt another word. He did everything. His rationalisation was all the Americans did it. Bob Hope never learnt a line, Jack Benny never learnt a line, they all used to read. So if they could do it, he could do it. The point is that the Hancock character is universal, really, isn't it? I mean, you've got miserable sods everywhere in the world, it's not just this country,
You want to get rid of him, mate, he's a right drag on you.
I shall be forced to fill you in a minute, madam.
That's it, go on, hit her, lady, go on, hit her.
All right, show me a lady and I will hit her. That way no, mate, that way no. Nobody to reply to that. Never mind about him. Will I see you tomorrow night, then?
Well, only if you're by yourself.
Get him and we'll all go out together.
OK. Ta-da. Tomorrow night, then, outside the factory. He'll carry your welding equipment home for you. Why do you have to start a row? I had it all sewn up there, money in the bank. Sidney, I'm not going to stand here being insulted by rubbish like that. I have my pride, you know. That's just about all you have got. Same thing happens every Saturday night. You're always having to spoil it for me. We find a couple of charmers, I go like a bomb and you get up their nose. What do you say to them? My courting habits are no concern of yours. They are when it ruins my night out. I'm telling you, mate, I'm thinking dead seriously of going out of my tot in future.
And he had a cruel streak, didn't he? Because he dropped Sid James.
That's funny, really, because Sid and Tony were inseparable. After a show finished with their two wives, they would all go out together. It was a big blow to Sid.
Yeah.
But not just professionally, because I don't think he wouldn't need it professionally, because he had become. But Sid always said, I don't want Hancock's job or anybody else like that. He said, I don't want to be a top banana. A second banana suit me fine. I don't want to have all these worries and all that. No. But at the same time, he did love being in the show, and he loved Tony, and he didn't understand it. He didn't understand the dropping.
Tony's reasoning, which we agreed with.
Well, it made sense. It made sense.
Makes sense. The fact is that they were becoming to be like Laurel and Hardy, Morecambe and Wise. They were becoming a double act, which they weren't. Sid had a career. He used to make 10 films a year outside of Hancock's half hour. He never stopped working. Tony only had the show, and it was becoming a bit of a double act, and he didn't see that his future was a double act, and so he thought if he's going to stop, he's got to change now.
There have been various books and programmes now made about Hancock, and a lot of attention comes down to what caused the breakup, and what in your view did cause it.
Well, I don't know what caused it actually, but they called a meeting with us and Beryl Virtue.
Who
was your agent?
Was our agent. She started off as us. She became a very big agent, and she still is. And
producing now.
And we met up at that place by Regent's Park, the White House, and he laid out his future plans to us. He was going to make this film. He was going to do it with Philip Oakes. He was going to set up a film company, and he's going to take his brother Roger with him. Means that Roger was part of our organisation, you're going to take him away. So that was goodbye. And he said, oh, and Beryl, he didn't want Beryl to be his agent anymore. So Beryl was in tears and everything else, but that was really the end of it. Yes, so our paths never crossed again, or really. So that was the end of that. But it was his doing. If we had really stuck together on getting the film subject and getting it right, it could be done. It could have been done. It wasn't. He knew what he was going to do.
But we couldn't wait any longer anyway because we had to earn some money. We went on retainers in those days, and we had to go. So the agreement was, come what may, we would go and write some television while he worked on his idea for a film. And maybe we'd get back, maybe, but it never happened.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, to me, it's like a kick in the face. I mean, we've been writing exclusively for him, really, for 9, 10 years. And to do that, I just thought, well, that's it,
So when you came out of that meeting, what did you say to each other?
I really don't remember, but...
But you knew that was the end, both of you?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, I thought, well, you go, baby. That's your chosen path, you do it.
The irony was that the second series of Steptoe, the first night of the second series of Steptoe, coincided with the first night of Tony's new series on ITV. One went out from 8 to 8:30, and the other went out from 8:30 to 9. And in the papers, it was all it's a fencing, And as it happened, I mean, Steptoe was a big, killed it.
Were you shocked when he died?
Not surprised. No, I mean, I expected every day I picked the paper up, I expect to see, that he'd topped himself. I really did, because he's a very proud man, and
because he was in such a bad state by then.
I mean, he didn't manifest anything like this until we all split, and then I can understand him being miserable, because there he is, top of the tree, and suddenly nothing's working. His shows weren't working, and he was taking more of that as he was getting more desperate, and his shows were getting worse the more he drank.
After Hancock's Half Hour with Tony Hancock, you had an incredible number of ideas at that time, because that was one of 10 comedies that year.
We had to earn some money. So we went to the BBC, and Tom Sloan, who was the head of Light Entertainment, said, what do you want to do? So Ray and I had always wanted to do a series with Frankie Howard.
We'd worked with Frank.
On
a series.
On radio. We'd done a couple of radio series with him, in the early 50s. And he didn't want to know. He said, no, he's finished. This was 1962. He said, he's finished. No, his last series didn't get any figures. He said, what I want you to do, he said, I've got this subject.
This is the most remarkable thing ever.
He said, I've got a title, Comedy Playhouse. He said, it's my title. He said, but I want you to do 10 weeks, right, 10 weeks. You can do what you like, I don't care. You can do a sketch show, you can do storylines, you can be in it, you can direct it, you can just give me 10 half hours called Comedy Playhouse.
Do we like? Remarkable, from a guy that we thought was, very, very correct and army and not really sure, but to come out with a stroke like this was unbelievable. We had to say yes. We had to say yes, and
well, the idea also appealed to us that we could see using actors now. We started using actors with Hancock, more straight actors, people like Colin Galton and and. John Le Mesurier really was a straight actor, and he became part of the setup. But the idea of using straight actors to play would appeal to us very much. Apart from the fact they wouldn't be counting their lines like the average comic does. Anyway, we got to number 4. Couldn't think of a subject for number 4. We had this little.
Going back to my childhood.
We had this thing that we used to do. If we couldn't think of anything, we'd come up with outlandish suggestions. 2 rat catchers in Buckingham Palace. Just to make ourselves. And Ray won, and he said 2 rag and bone men. And I thought he was, coming up with one of his jokes, and didn't. One of the silences, I didn't say anything.
So for 3 days you didn't say anything?
3 hours I didn't say anything, and then I suddenly thought to myself, that's quite, so it's a very bizarre background. And so I said, what about those two rag and bone men? And he said, what? He was serious. I found out years later it wasn't a joke. He'd meant it. And so but we still had no idea of who they were, what they were, what the story was going to be. But we were getting to a deadline. We had to start writing. So.
They were father and son at that stage.
Well, no, we hadn't. They hadn't at that time. We didn't know what they could have been friends.
We got halfway through, and it wasn't going anywhere. It was quite, we enjoyable writing, and I said, well, I said, but what are we going to do? I said, we can't go on like this. We can't write another 10 pages of just inconsequential chit-chat, So we went back over it, and it was obvious that one was older than the other one, came out of the... And the other, he was a bit of an invalid because he stayed at home all day while the other one went out. So we thought, right, one's older, one's younger. What are they, brothers, cousins, business partner? And then the idea came up, father and son, and that was the catalyst. The son was 37 years old and was still at home with his father, and we suddenly saw this was a relationship, And we finished the play with him deciding he's going to go, and he couldn't go because the old man wouldn't let him have the horse. And it worked beautifully, and then during the writing of it, Duncan said, who do you want to play the parts? And we said, well, there are two actors that we'd never met, but we admired their work. Harry H. Corbett, Wilfrid Bramble.
Harry was appearing at Bristol Old Vic. He was doing Henry IV, I think. And the script was sent to him, and he read it, and he persuaded them to let him have a week off, and which they gave, and he did it. So there he was. He was the king one week and a rag and bone man the next.
Another thing about Steptoe and Son, which could have changed your lives quite dramatically, is that you never wanted it to be a series at first.
No, not at all. But see, the thing is, while we were writing it, we knew it was a series. When we finished it, we knew it was a series, but we didn't want to do it. I mean, 10 years of Hancock, having this is fine. Suit us down to the ground, having in a comedy playhouse. And on the first day of rehearsal, Tom Sloane was down there, and looking and smiling. Nudge, nudge, nudge. You know what you've done here, don't you? No, what? Oh, come on. What? It's a series. No, Tom, no. Never.
It's one on his own.
No, I don't want to do it. No. And he appeared every day, and he took us out to lunch, and he did this and he did that, and we came, all the objections we could think of, and manufactured, stupid ones as well. And in the end, about 6 months had gone by, and in the end we said, look, if Harry Corbett and Wilfrid Bramble want to do it, we'll do it. Thinking, two actor laddies, and they wouldn't want to do this for a living, and we couldn't have been more wrong if we tried. It was put to them, and they jumped at it.
Years later, we found out that when they were employed to do the first one, The Offer, they were employed under drama rates as straight actors, and I think they got paid £90 each, or 90 guineas each for that show. When it comes to do a series, it becomes a light entertainment show, and the money in light entertainment is much more for actors than it is for drama. So they were offered about,
probably £700 or something.
Considerably more money, and of course they leapt at it and never had offered so much money in their lives. That's why they did it.
But that's why we did it.
And that's why we did it. But the point is now they said yes. Our escape route was cut off. And, I mean, it worked immediately. That was the beauty of it. We did a 6-week series. They repeated the first one, and then they did six new ones. And Ray and I went off on holiday. Ray had taken a villa in Spain. We were going out there to work on a film script. And I picked up the Daily Mail in Bagnols-sur-Mer, right on the border of France. And it said about this new series, Steptoe and Son, sweeping the country. This is halfway through the series. Harry came out to join us and said, he said, it's ridiculous. He said, I can't move anywhere. he said the show and the BBC did that they'd never done before. They repeated it immediately. They followed it on, so it ran for 12 weeks. And at the end of the 12 weeks, it was an enormous success. So, because now we had no excuse not doing a second series, and we did 4 series altogether. You know. Then we had a 4-year break, and then we came back for another 4. So we did 8 series altogether.
And it was such a hit that I think, isn't it true, that Harold Wilson wanted transmission time change because he thought it would stop people voting?
Yeah, it was in the '64 election, that was. He said that, you know, the Labour Party's traditional support is in the evening, and this show is going out at 8:30, well, they won't come out.
Was that before or after we invited us to dinner?
That was, I can't, yeah, well, it was... Anyway, apparently... the BBC refused to change it anyway, and they still got in, so it couldn't have... Yeah.
I suppose with both Steptoe and Son and Hancock, you were lucky with the look of the actors, the things you could do visually. I vividly remember in Steptoe the scene where he takes a bath, Wilfrid Bramble.
Oh, yeah. I mean, mind you, we were horrified that he was that skinny. Never realised, God, you know, he looked to become straight out of the sanatorium.
Yeah.
You know,
What a way to live.
You dirty old man! What are you doing?
Having me Lawson, they're having me dinner.
What are you doing with them onions?
Oh, they fell in the water.
Well, you don't put them back in the jar then.
Hey, you don't think I'm going to leave them in the water, do you? I'm washing a pot full of pickled onions, can I?
The other interesting thing, well, people have commented on, I suppose there must be some truth, but it's because Ray and I wrote both scripts, and it's ourselves, really. The Steptoe and Son, you know, were in a way an extension of of Hancock and Sid James, albeit you could get into a deeper country with the Steptoe than you could with Hancock. But there was an extension. The attitudes between each other, you know, the soi-disant intellectual as opposed to the thickhead who you know, Sid and the old man were, you know, had no airs and graces, and both Harry and Hancock were living in, in
Knew
a
there was a
different
better
world.
life
Knew
out
there
there.
was,
That was it.
So there was that
that
similarity.
But I think most of the great television comedy in Britain has been about class, hasn't it?
And failure. I mean, yeah.
Right.
But it's right there, right up to The Office, isn't it? Class and failure.
But you can't be funny about success, I don't think. Yeah.
The big difference in American sitcoms and ours is they're all good-looking, very rich, very wealthy, you know, and successful. In ours, they're all layabouts or dodgy dealers. Or you know, duckers and divers.
Hopeless dreamers. Del Boy, Basil Fawlty, all of them.
Absolutely. And the Minder, you know, they're all you know, a little bit seedy, a little bit this, a little bit that, you know, that, you know.
But, you know, I was saying to somebody the other day, say every day, really, bad holidays you will remember for the rest of your life. And in recounting them, you would tell people, and you start laughing. But you can't engross anybody in, I had a wonderful holiday last year, did you? You're going to be dead in about a minute, wouldn't they? But disaster is funny, and failure is funny.
But also, you see, I mean, Ray and I, to a certain extent, have always written about ourselves in a way. I mean, what we're writing is, I'm not suggesting that, you know, that we're putting ourselves into the character.
So all these miserable old sods.
Yeah, it's us.
Yeah,
absolutely. Two right old misery.
You've discovered it now. There's a lot of laughs in misery.
Just a couple of old miserable old gits.
You wrote on into the mid-70s, but then you decided to retire.
Yeah, yeah.
What was it? A midlife crisis?
Yeah, well, you know, it was a bit older than... Yeah, no, I suppose, yeah, midlife. It was a midlife. You know, I had other problems with... I didn't mean to retire. I meant to take a year off or so, you know, just and then sort of come back and say, you know, but that's fatal. It's a bit like athletes, you know. Once you stop, you can't take a year off and then come back. You've got to keep going. Because I found I couldn't concentrate. And the one thing you should be able to do when you're writing is concentrate. You've got to cast everything out of your mind. And I couldn't, you know, for 10 minutes, and I couldn't, you know, so.
Do you regret stopping?
I regret having written. I used to enjoy having written, but I don't. The act of writing never really. Too hard. It really is hard. But having written, I used to love it. Couldn't wait to go to rehearsal. Couldn't wait to sit in the rehearsals. But the idea of actually writing it, you know, I found that. But see, in some respects, I regret it. Yeah. But.
Ray, did you feel shocked or betrayed when he decided to retire?
I could see it coming. But it's not something I hoped for or wanted. And I think in Sweden one night we were there. Good place to be miserable, isn't it? We stayed up all night drinking and in the hotel room, and I was trying to persuade him not to turn it in, and didn't work. But it was wrong. But I thought, well, you know, he's got to do what he's got to do, and that man's got to do what he's got to do.
So when you say that you could see it coming, you knew?
I knew he wasn't very happy, a happy bunny at all.
I had private problems, private life.
But so...
Problems with my marriage at the time was, you know, so...
But I don't think it was just that. I don't think it was just that, because, you know, you could get over those sort of things, and you do, and you did. Yeah, but anyway, I didn't want it to happen, and I tried to persuade him, whatever was wrong, not to worry about it. We'd carry on, and it'll all come right in the end. But no, that was it. That was it.
And in the 30 years since, you must at times have said, let's get back together.
Well, we do. No, we haven't. We've never discussed it. But we do get back together occasionally. I see Ray every week, you know, sometimes more than once a week. He lives a couple of minutes from me.
Most people get irritated by getting older and so on, but I was thinking, looking back to the sanatorium, it's amazing that you're here.
I know. I resent every day that passes. I really do. I see nothing good about aging. I see nothing good about old age at all. It's just a waste of time, and it's quite worrying, really. But there you are. Everybody has to put up with it, unless you're lucky enough to die earlier. But well, some people say that, you know, have a good-looking corpse. No, it's nothing to hang. But we do hang on to it, and you try and enjoy it at the same time.
Better than the alternative.
Yeah.
And one of the things that famously happens to people as they get older, particularly comedians, comic writers, is they say, "Oh, that new young lot, they're not funny when I watch them on the television." Yeah. Do you suffer from that?
I read Philip Roth instead.
No, I think they were good. I don't believe in golden ages of, you know, it's not as good as it used to be. I mean, they were good and bad in every era. You know, a lot of rotten rubbish was being pumped out when, you know, 30, 40 years ago, but nobody remembers it. And I think there's some wonderful young comedians out there. I think Peter Kay is brilliant. I like everything he does. Yeah. And he's a young man. God, he, you know, not as young as we were when we started, but he's only 30. I mean, it's 32 or whatever.
What about The Office?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but I'm glad they stopped on series 2. I mean, there was definitely definitely the end of it.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It was brilliant, you know, for the first, well, for the second series as well. Brilliantly done.
And finally, if we played Desert Island discs or DVDs, if there was one you could take with you, it would be The Blood Donor, wouldn't it?
That. Or I don't know. Maybe
I would prefer a compilation. I would like bits of The Blood Donor. I would love I'd like the scene, the plea to the jury, and you know, does Magna Carta mean nothing to you? Did she die in vain? That speech, and some bits of Steptoe. If I could have a half-hour compilation, rather than the one complete show.
Yeah, I think so. But you know, I'm surprised at the lack of egotism in people who go on that show. It has happened once or twice where they do pick all their records and everything else like that, but most of them don't. Most of them have the good taste not to pick it. But I don't think comedy... Well, you cannot tell a joke twice. You can't tell a joke twice. And if it's not quite the same, but see a show more than a couple of times, I think it would drive you up the wall, especially comedy. I think that's where the drama has got the edge. I think you can get in the mood and watch it again and see something else in it or something like that. Whereas I don't think you would try and find something else in a comedy show. You take it as it presents itself to you, and I think you get. Well, I would get terribly bored. I'd kill it, throw it in the sea.
And can I take an episode of Rab C. Nesbitt with me?
You can, yeah.
Thank you.
Ray Galton and Alan Simpson, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Next week, Mark Lawson meets George Cole. Next tonight, stay tuned for a look behind the scenes of Ray and Alan's creation. The Curse of Steptoe is next. More info in just a second.